What is up, everybody? This is Mike with Tiny Life Big Mission, and I've got my wife Kate here with me. We've been hiking the PCT, and for our friends and family, we're doing a little bit of a vlog. So today we're looking at week 2 on the PCT. Week 2 for us dates from March 10th to March 16th. Starting on that Sunday, that would have been day 8 in our hike. We were deciding whether or not to move on or to stay put, and we made the decision probably before night 7, when we were getting ready to pay for camp on night 7, to just take 2 days to give Kate's feet a chance to kind of heal up. She'd been suffering from some blisters, and she now had this weird knee leg thing going on, and we weren't really sure what that looked like, so it was very important for us to rest. So the first day of the week, Sunday, we just rested. What would you say highs and lows of that day were?
I feel like I had a great day that day. We were able to do laundry, which was a huge blessing for sure. And got to meet a certain local, which was interesting. Desert people are a different kind of people for sure, but she's very pleasant and
super sweet,
very chatty. But she lived maybe a mile away, and she was just coming to the campground to do her laundry, and she had this beautiful collie with her, and it was just a fun experience.
Caitlin loves all animals, especially dogs. and
so yeah, that kind of made my day to get to meet this puppy. I mean, she's like a year old or whatever, but
yeah.
And then later that night, that evening, we met a younger duo through hiker
partnership. Yeah, they're friends. They're not a couple, but they were coupled together on the trail.
Yeah. And just getting to chat with them was really encouraging. Like, I felt like both of them just had really good, like, I don't know, vibes, really good spirits, and we really enjoyed getting to know them a little bit. They were going a little bit slower. One self-admittedly is a slow hiker, and the other one was having some knee issues, and so kind of felt like connected with them over that.
Yeah, his name was Finn, and her name was Willow.
Yeah, Finn and Willow. And yeah, we did laundry we hung out while they were doing laundry, and we hit the showers and
did my video.
Yeah, kind of gave them a rundown of the campground, I guess, because they showed up on the day where the store was closed, and told them where to set up and that kind of thing. And we ended up being able to have dinner with them, and like that was just probably my favorite part. Like they were really
super
cool
fun
people to meet.
We really enjoyed them. Yeah.
So.
Okay, so day 2 of week 2, we hiked 16.14 miles, and we had 2510 elevation gain, which was pretty significant. We ended up hiking up the side of this mountain and kind of just kept going up and up and up. We got to this water cache. They tell you not to depend on water caches. This one was definitely fully stocked and looking good. So for those who may be hiking, to report back, I mean, I don't know what time you're launching, but as of the 11th, it was very full in the cache. Now, we camped there. It was super windy all day. Didn't really have any like precipitation or anything. That was like pretty much the only day that week, but very windy, and a little bit of up and down on the trail, where the one side of the trail is almost like a cliff and the other side just goes straight up, and so you're walking on this little narrow edge, and it was pretty rocky. Caitlin didn't really care for that very much. She doesn't like extreme heights, and this was an extreme height. The San Felipe Valley, you could just see right down in the middle. There's a mountain range off on the left, and we're on the mountain range on the right, just crawling along the side of that hill. And it was pretty gnarly, but beautiful. I loved it. Caitlin didn't. But highs and lows of that day.
Highs were the beginning of the hike once we got to Scissors Crossing again, and we started going up. Again, the biosphere changed. There's a lot more interesting cactus that we saw. Got to see a snake for the first time. I don't believe it was a rattler, but
no, it was like a corn snake or a king snake, something like that.
His tail was like chomped off by something.
Yeah.
So that was kind of interesting. My phone said that I walked 18.7 miles that day, which may or may not be accurate, but we hiked a lot that day.
Well, we got a 2-mile hitch, so that's why I deducted from 18 to 16. So But yeah, mine said 18.2.
The hitch was interesting, but I was grateful for not having to walk the entire way from the campground to Scissors Crossing. And yeah, nice guy. I probably wouldn't have gotten into the car with him if my husband wasn't with me. But yeah.
He was a little sketch looking.
Yeah. So
Car was sketch looking, he was sketch looking, but he was super nice, just salt of the earth. He
Yeah.
took us where we needed to go, and it was helpful.
Yeah, so about 5 miles in, my legs started hurting again, and that was very upsetting to me. I was again worried because I didn't really know what was going on, so I did a little bit of Googling and was a little encouraged, I guess. I believe I strained my vastus medialis, my quadriceps, for those of you who are nerdy like me and like that kind of stuff. Which, a strain, not a huge deal, but it can take up to 6 weeks to heal. And I was like, oh no, this is gonna take me out for forever. And Michael had this ace bandage that's been in his first aid kit for forever, and he's never used it.
I almost took it out before the start of the hike.
Yeah, which I'm very glad he didn't. So he ended up wrapping above my knee, and that helped significantly. And after that, like, it was just a long day.
It was a hard day.
I was very tired, and I was tired while we were on the side of the mountain, on this tiny little trail that was kind of tipped towards the side that will, you know, kill you if you fall off. And it was super rocky, which is not my favorite terrain.
The wind made it really hard that day
the
too.
wind was bad,
it was like
but
60 miles an hour sustained.
yeah, I had a very hard time embracing the suck that day.
Yeah.
So by the time we got to camp, I was pretty much donezo. Honestly, like, I think the high point, like, this is so silly, but there's the birds in that area that we camped were just going nuts, and there was some kind of bird that tried to land on our tent, and I just thought that was so funny.
Day 3, we ended up hiking 13.48 miles. We gained about 1552 in elevation. We camped at this little creek called San Sidro, I think is how it's pronounced. I'm not sure. It's spelled Y-S-I-D-R-O, San Sidro Creek. The weather was super nice, probably the nicest that we experienced that week. And it was kind of like the best day of the week, if you ask me. What was your take on that day, the high-low?
I feel like there was a lot on that day. The thing that stands out to me the most initially is the terrain was off of the mountains, and we're walking through this guy's like ranch land, so it's very pastury and flat, and there's cows in the field, and that was quite amusing to me for sure. Also, we hit 100 miles, which felt like a big milestone for sure, and we almost missed it. Like, someone had just like spelled out 100 using some rocks on the trail sideways, so you didn't notice it right away. Also, God completely healed my leg.
Yeah, we prayed over it
Oh
that
my
morning,
gosh.
and it was an answer to prayer real quick. So.
Yeah, like no pain at all. Like, I kept it wrapped for I think the next couple days just to be safe, but I had no more pain, and I was so relieved and grateful. And it was interesting coming into the spot where we camped, because we started getting like trees, and there's like leaves covering the ground, and there's still these cactus everywhere. It was just super weird.
Yeah, kind of a cross between forest and desert.
Yeah.
As you came down out of the mountain, it kind of flattened out, and that's where we started seeing all that. We had a water cache down there, a natural spring that we were able to resupply at, and we found an A&W root beer, which Caitlin had been craving, and a can of Coca-Cola, which I had been craving. So we both got a nice little treat for dinner that night.
Mm-hmm.
And the creek that we camped by was amazing, and just an amazing day. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And we got to have, well, I got to have chicken coconut curry by Peak
Fuel.
Peak Fuel, as far as like MREs, like dehydrated food. And man, that is the most delicious packaged food like that I've ever had.
Yeah, I
And
was
that was a
super
blessing.
jealous
That
over
was
that.
from
Yeah, that was from Withdrawn.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
good
thank
dinner
you for that.
night. Yeah, for sure.
Day 4 was around 10-ish miles. The reason why I don't know specifically is because we hiked into Warner Springs, and we stopped our map tracking and stuff while we were tooling around in the little town there, and roughly around 1,000 elevation. So again, because we stopped our tracking, we don't know specifically for sure. But that night we hiked out of Warner Springs and was able to find a little creek to camp next to that was called Agua Caliente Creek. It wasn't super bad weather. We had a little bit of weather that day. There was definitely some strong winds coming up into the mountains as we were hiking out of Warner Springs, and a little bit of a storm blew in. We got some mild rains here and there, but mainly during the day. Once we were camped, we didn't experience any at camp, but that night it did rain a little bit, I think, not tons. But overall, not bad compared to what weather we had coming in front of us. We'll get to that in a minute. When we got to Warner Springs, we did resupply there, and all they have there to resupply is a little mini mart gas station, but it's pretty decently stocked. The guy who was working there was super cool. I believe his name was Alan, and he had this recommendation for this local guy called Mad Mike, who makes sausage and jerky and stuff like that, and he recommended for us to get some of the sausage, and we were like, oh, okay, well, great. And as we were kind of looking through our stuff, these locals kept popping in, and they were literally stopping at this gas station, not to get gas, not to get anything else, but getting sausage. And so after I saw like 5 or 6 people come through, pick up sausage, I was like, maybe we should try this out. And we ended up getting some sausage. They also had moleskin and Leuco tape for anybody who may be hiking the PCT. They plan to stock that. The Leuco tape works so good on Caitlin's blisters. They had some instructions there on how to apply it and all that kind of stuff. So if you want to check that out, or maybe check it out on YouTube before you go. But super worthwhile if you're prone to blisters. On that day, we also completed Section A, which is the first 109.5 miles of the PCT, and started Section B. What would you say, highs and lows of that day?
Definitely coming into Warner Springs was nice because like they had the bathroom.
Oh, just the trek down the mountain too, through the rest of that pasture area.
Oh, there's a day hike from Warner Springs to Eagle Rock, which we didn't notice like while we were out there. Like we didn't see the formation, but when we got down to Warner Springs, there's like a picture of what it actually looks like, and it looks like a spread eagle, and it's really cool. So I know we walked by it, we just didn't
we
see
saw
it.
The cropping of rocks. We just didn't get to see the eagle formation on the rocks because you have to walk around the back side of it.
Like you're kind of out in the middle of a field with these giant boulder
Crops,
features.
yeah, they're just randomly stuck everywhere.
And then like the back half of that part of the hike, you're following a stream, and so you have these ginormous trees and beautiful
it's like
grass.
A park or
like
something.
Park.
It's so beautiful.
And there were so many day hikers doing that. We met someone I think who did it last year. Thumper, yeah. And he had some good tips and encouragement, and we saw lots of birds and a couple critters.
Yeah.
There's a bird we couldn't quite identify with the Merlin app listening to it, and as we come around this corner, there's like the squirrel hanging out at
I don't know what he was. He's kind of like a groundhog squirrel thing, I don't know, but he's sitting up in the top of this branch just squawking.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. We watched him for a minute, and lots of lizards and that kind of thing. Also, my mother was aware of my blisters, and as any concerned mother would do, she's like, okay, how am I going to take care of this for her? So I was on the phone with her while she went to REI in Kalispell, Montana, and talked. She was like, I need your most experienced thru hiker. And they hooked her up with this gal named Grace, who hiked the PCT last year, and ironically had the same issue that I did with tons of blisters. And so she had tons of tips as far as like socks and liners and brands and things to do. So that was really wonderful of my mom. So thank you, Mom. And I have a box I need to go get with some new socks to try. And also, Grace, I guess, had gotten off the trail where we were
at the same spot
at Warner Springs to let her blisters heal. So I'm glad that we didn't have to get off the trail for those, but it was definitely an encouraging thing, I guess. And Rick and Pegs bought us like beverages to celebrate completing Section A, and that was a super cool little pick-me-up too. And
yeah,
it was a good stop in Warner Springs for sure.
Yeah, thank you for the Venmo. We love you guys.
Yes.
So day 5, we did about 11.54 miles. We had 2428 elevation gain, so a little bit more up in that day. And we had gotten warning that morning that there was going to be some severe weather coming into the area, not that night, but the night after. And so we had a decision to make whether, because we had this big mountain peak in front of us that we had to get over, where the elevation, the altitude, we would be sitting at around 6,600 feet, somewhere right in there. And we wanted to get over that before the next day, to where when that weather did hit, we would not have to be stuck in a high elevation. So we pushed a little bit further that day, even though Caitlin's blisters weren't doing that great, to get up to this campsite where we camped. It was on the connection to the trailhead that goes up to summit Mount Combs. The storm ended up not following the forecast, and it surprised all the meteorologists, and it dumped snow everywhere. We woke up to 6 inches of snow blanketing our tent. We were completely boxed in. It was all over us. In fact, we didn't end up getting up early that morning, because normally the sun wakes us up coming through the tent, but it was so dark that I'd woke up about the time that I normally would, looked out, and I was like, it's still dark, so I went back to sleep. Woke up a couple hours later, it was still dark, so I went back to sleep. Woke up a couple hours later, still dark, so I was like, what the heck's going on here? I asked Kate to turn on her phone, because we power off our phones every night, and check the time, and it was like 9:30, but it was pitch black. And so I realized at that point we had snow up on the tent and had to dig ourselves out. It was wet snow, so we just were soaking wet. I don't know, I guess we weren't soaking wet when we woke up, but we got soaking wet. We had to make a decision whether to stay there and wait out the snow or to try and get down elevation, because from that point it was pretty much a straight shot down coming into a valley over the course of the next like 20 miles or so. I don't think it was 20 miles, it was about 15 miles probably. And so we were going to try and make it to that 15-mile mark, so that was the lowest elevation, and it would bring us down to around 3,100 feet, something like that. So I'm kind of jumping into day 6 here, but I'll pause there and go back to day 5 and ask you, like, highs, lows. Was there anything that stood out that day? We met Orca.
Yeah, nothing was particularly great or terrible about that day. I was pretty tired.
Feet and leg was still hurting.
Yeah, I was sore. I liked the terrain that we were walking through when we ran into Orca.
Yeah.
It was super bouldery and super sandy, which was an interesting combination. And
good views.
Yeah, good views. I was very excited about our campsite that night. Like, we were kind of on the top of everything, which put us pretty exposed, and it was windy, but like the view around us was like, oh, this is gonna be an amazing sunrise tomorrow. I was so excited, and did not get to experience that.
Yeah.
And everything was covered in snow. So, but yeah, it was a fine day.
Yeah.
No big major complaints. It was cold. Like, I think it was 44 degrees, which
throughout
has
the
been
day,
worse,
yeah. But that was a cold day. Because the wind was blowing and it was a cold wind.
Yeah.
Yeah. So day 6, we ended up waking up to the snow. We had to make the decision whether we were going to get down there or not. We decided rather than waiting out the snow, it'd probably be better to get down in elevation, because that storm front was still out there. It wasn't like the storm came early. It just, there was a surprise storm that popped up, and that storm was still coming. So we had another round of weather that we wanted to get out of elevation for. So we set off to do the 15 miles. We got 8 miles down, and we could have made it the other distance, but when we got to 8 miles, we were at this crossroad that is called Tule Canyon Road. And again, it's one of those overlanding roads. It's really gnarly looking. It doesn't even look like a road. It kind of barely looks like a wide trail.
Yeah,
and
it's pretty rough.
Yeah, and we kind of camped out on this little plateau, but we camped there because there was a water tank about a half mile off the trail there that you could go and resupply water, because water is very sparse through that part of the trail, and we wanted to be close to that. So we camped there, but the reason why we stopped there was because of, as we got there, the clouds were looking really gnarly, like the storm was going to start early, and we were afraid of getting caught in some more snow as we were hiking. We would rather be in our tent and tucked in for the night if it's going to snow again. So we made the decision to set camp. And I'm super glad that we did, because we were only in there in our tent for maybe 15-20 minutes. We kind of ate some quick food, and then it just started dumping hail, and it hailed really hard for about 30 minutes. So I don't know if you can hear me over all the noise. This is inside our tent. Today is day 13. We got 6 inches of snow this morning, and we did a short hike, only totaling about 8 miles down the mountain, and the clouds were looking really bad, so we set up camp early. And then this rolled in about, I don't know, a few minutes ago. Since it was going so long, I thought maybe I should record, but we've got all of our clothes kind of trying to dry out. And we're just having ourselves some dinner, trying not to be wet. But everything about today has been wet. We had collection of hail on our accumulated on our tent, and then after that it stopped hailing but transitioned into rain, and it rained all night. Like, it was such a wet night. We woke up to everything still soaking wet the next day, and nothing dried out. But that 7th day, we'll jump into day 7 in just a second. But as far as day 6 goes, anything you want to add to that? It was just a miserable day. I guess you can tell about how wet we got as we were climbing down through the snow.
We had made an attempt to stay dry, and we put bags on our feet and double socks, and
yeah, we had some Ziploc bags that was waterproofing some of our gear, and we decided to take our gear out, put it in dry bags, and use the baggies to put our feet in to try and stay warm.
Yeah, and Michael had some rain pants, and the day before
I forgot about those.
Yeah, Orca had warned us that the backside of this climb, or this mountain,
was really overgrown.
With different shrubs, and so with the snow on them, it was really wet, heavy snow.
Yeah, and it just clouded the whole trail.
Yeah.
So it just brushed up against us. So you're getting wet on your top, you're getting wet on your bottom.
So all of the plants in the desert want to stab you, if nothing else. Some of them are more vicious than others.
Everything's spiny.
Everything's spiny, and so these rain pants that Michael had were just getting shredded to ribbons, and it was the funniest looking thing to me because I was following him because I was very grateful he was leading the way.
Taking all the snow.
Yeah, taking all the snow. I did manage to slip a few times, and it was very slow going, which was pretty tough. Like, by the time we made it 8 miles down to that overlanding road, like, I was super done, so I was super grateful to stop.
Yeah, it's just a rough day.
We were soaked, like, just completely soaked. It was miserable.
Yeah. So that brings us to day 7. We woke up, everything was still sloppy wet. We got a little patch of sun that morning, so I was like, quick, hurry up, get all of our stuff out. There was some rocks that were all around where we camped. We could throw our stuff that was wet out on the rocks and let the sun just kind of dry it up. While that was going on, I was like, I'm gonna run down to the creek where there's a water tank and refill our waters before we go, because we were gonna try and push for a big day. We were gonna get about 15 miles, 16 miles to get out of that section of the trail. We would be reaching the PVC, which is the Paradise Valley Cafe. It's an iconic little trail stop for the PCT. But anyway, I went down to get the water, and when I came back up, I could hear Caitlin talking to somebody, and so I was like, oh, well, maybe One Step, this guy who we had kind of been seeing here and there, he's a little elusive, but I thought maybe he had caught up to us and Caitlin was talking with him or whatever. So I kind of come around this corner, and to my surprise, there's a black Chevy Blazer that's got this guy who's pulling like tables and chairs and stuff out of the back of his truck. And it was a trail angel named Prospector who came over from Orange County to help hikers. He said, you know, I've been watching the weather on the trail, and I could just tell that you guys were getting hammered out here with all kinds of ugly. And he goes, so I just decided I was gonna pick the most miserable portion of trail, because he's been doing the PCT in section, and he did this section a couple years ago. And he's like, I'm gonna just pick the most miserable section of trail and go there and help people. And the place where he happened to pick for the most miserable section of trail is right where we were camped. So he literally drove up right to our camp spot, pulled out some tables and chairs for us to be able to sit and eat at, and he brought Little Caesars pizza, Wendy's chicken nuggets. He brought some stuff to make coffee and waffles, which didn't quite work out, but he brought sodas and all kinds of snacks and M&Ms and donuts, and it was just amazing. Prospector was a super cool dude.
Yeah.
Really got to enjoy talking with him, and I'll let you kind of talk about the friends we met.
Oh yeah. So One Step did end up showing up shortly after Prospector set up his Trail Magic table, and then we met another cool couple,
Painter and T-Pop.
Yeah, Painter and T-Pop, and they're a super rad couple. Got to connect with them a little bit.
Yeah, they're about our age, and
yeah,
been married for 10 years,
mm-hmm.
and just rad people.
Yeah. And they were super appreciative of the Trail Magic too, and just really needing it. They laid out their stuff to dry while they were sitting there, so they got definitely pretty wet.
And they had the same plan as us to push to get to the PVC that day.
Yeah, so they're a little faster than us.
Way faster than us.
But we did end up seeing them later on that day once we got to our final destination. One Step ended up
camping out,
so we passed him. But yeah, it was the Trail Magic definitely was
it gave us the fuel that we needed to do the day, because we ended up doing 15.62 miles with 2664 elevation gain. You didn't stop going up. Yeah, we just climbed and climbed and climbed. It was our longest mileage day thus far and our biggest elevation gain thus far. So it was a super hard day overall in terms of the hike, but the trail was beautiful. The weather really wasn't that great. We had a lot of wind. We had more rain that day, mostly throughout all the afternoon. We just got rained on. So we were starting with wet gear that kind of got dried out, but then shortly got wet again. And by the time we got off, like we got to a highway crossing, I think it's Highway S2, and the PVC is about a mile west of the highway. So we were gonna have to hike that last little mile section. But as we got to the highway, there was this white SUV parked on the side of the road that was running, and as we got to it, we noticed there was nobody in it, and I thought that was weird, and somebody would just leave their car running on the side of the highway. But as we got up to it, it just shut off. I was like, that's weird. So I went to look in the window, and there was an elderly gentleman who had his seat leaned all the way back, who was like passed out in there. And I was kind of freaked out that maybe something had happened to him. So I knock on the window, and it kind of startled him. He was a little freaked out, like, what are you doing? And I'm like, nothing, I just saw you laying there. I wanted to check on you, make sure you're okay, if you need CPR or something like that. And he started laughing. He's like, no, I'm waiting on hikers. And I was like, you are? And he's like, yeah, I'm a trail angel. I'd grab you guys and take you wherever you want to go. And I'm like, well, we're hikers. We want to go to the PVC. So he's like, sure, jump in. And he gave us a ride up to the PVC. His name was Frank. Turns out he's 87 years old. He had us guess his age. We couldn't guess him. We placed him at like late 60s maybe. But super young spirit, just a friendly guy, sharp as a tack. And he sat with us while we ate our meal. We met T-Pop
and Painter
back at the PVC. And we were all kind of trying to come up with a plan. I have a friend that lives not too far off the trail, a little bit further north, just past Idlewild off of I-10. And when we announced to all of our friends that we were going to be doing this, he reached out to me and said, you know, when you get close, let us know. We'd love to host you guys. And so I reached out to him early, like I'd been keeping him posted how we were going and when we were going to be to his stop. And this was unexpected. Like, we didn't have cell signal for a couple days, so I couldn't notify him to let him know what we were thinking. So I call him and I'm like, look, I don't want to hit you off guard, but we're at a place now where we really need the help. And he was ready for us. He said, yeah, sure, come on. He was going to come get us. But Frank was willing to give us a hitch out there. And he also took T-Pop and Painter to Idlewild and showed us all around the town, dropped them off at a campground, made sure they got in there nice and safe. And then he took us, he drove by his house because of it was on the way out, and he wanted to show us his cabin that he engineered and architected and everything. And it was a cool little property. And then he took us down the mountain into Beaumont and we connected with our friends, and that's actually whose house we're at now, where you see in the background. We'll give that update for next week, but I mean, just talk about an answer to prayer. Like, we were at a place where we weren't sure where we were going to stay that night, but God used these people to bless us, and they've been an amazing host. So Jeff and Barb, love you guys. Yeah, super awesome to be here, and just truly humbled at your guys' generosity. Thank you so much. But anything you want to add for day 7?
Quail. I did want to mention this was very annoying. At the end of like the hiking day, it seemed like we could see our destination. So we're looking down into this valley, and there's tons of homes, and you can see, you know, there's stuff going on down there. And it felt like the trail just took us all the way around the town. It was like, see it,
30 different times.
And we kept climbing, and we're like, we're supposed to be going into a valley. Why are we still climbing? Like, the last couple miles, we were just like dying because we're like, we don't understand this trail. Like, we're supposed to be going down.
Yeah, we have 2 miles left to the highway, and we're still going up. Yeah.
So that was pretty ridiculous. And Idlewild down to Beaumont was also another crazy
story. Yeah.
Mountain road that was terrible for me.
Frank knows it like the back of his hand, and he was going like 90 miles an hour down these curves. Just
But I will say that I saw the most beautiful sunset I think I've ever seen.
It was
up
insane.
in the mountains.
Yeah.
Like, the sun was super red, the colors were amazing, and then you had like the mountains were
as far as the eyes could see. Yeah. And sorry.
There is like a gradient of the mountains that you see a lot in like art, and
with the hazy as they fade back.
Cool. It was really cool. So
yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah.
But Caitlin survived the ride mostly.
We'll spare you the details.
Yeah, she survived, and we made it to town, and we decided when we got here that we needed some better gear. We weren't planning for it to be anywhere near as wet as what we've experienced. We've pretty much had rain. Of the 14 days, I'd probably say 11 of the 14 days we've had some kind of precipitation, so it's been a little wet and a little bit challenging when you're not prepared for it. So we stayed here, ordered some gear, and yeah, we'll give you an update for week 3.